Hi, I'm Shanta Maharaj Singh. I am the owner of Successful Mindset Strategies Pty Limited. I am a professional counselor registered with Council for Counselors South Africa. I'm also a member coach with Commensa. I'm a Neuralink neuroagility practitioner, and I also practice auricular acupuncture. In my profession as a mental health therapist, I very often come across a misconception that there's only one way to treat mental health. And I find that especially in the South African scenario, that we are moving away from understanding the impact of traditional medicine and traditional healing on mental health. I have a very interesting guest today, and we are going to be discussing his profession and the contribution that his profession does make to mental health, and how his profession is misunderstood. But before I tell you what he does, I'm going to give you his degrees. A degree in philosophy and a degree in theology. And adding to all that, in 4 decades of being on this earth only, he has achieved the highest rank of Makoshi. And I'm not going to go into any further details. All of you South Africans, immediately you hear the word Makoshi, you understand the direction I'm taking. Mr. Khumalo, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself, sir, because I cannot do justice to your intelligence and your wisdom.
Thank you, Ms. Maharaj. My name is Siphesihle Khumalo. I'm a traditional healer by profession, of 25 years experience. Academically, I'm a holder of a degree in philosophy and a degree holder in theology. I obtained my academics in St. Joseph Theological School when I was with the Catholic Church, yes. And then after that, I've started my journey of being a healer since back then. Before I even went to the Catholic Church, it was to further my education, but I've been in practice properly for the past 11 years. I think, yeah.
Thank you so much. As I said, a man of such great wisdom. Now, I am concerned about, as I said, the mental health issue and the way traditional healing is disregarded. And mental health from a traditional approach is disregarded. So I am going to ask Mr. Khumalo to tell us about the road to becoming a traditional healer so that we have a better understanding of this profession and work with this profession instead of looking at them and us, because that seems to be the biggest problem. Mr. Khumalo, how does one go about becoming a traditional healer? What are the steps? What are the requirements?
To start off with, to be a traditional healer, it's a science of psychology of dreams, where your ancestors, they come to you at first, they present themselves in dreams. And sometimes how do you discover that? You discover through when you go for consultation. When your life is not going well, you have to go to another healer who checks up things for you. If why your things are not going well, that's another way of discovering. And the third part of it, it's when here at home there is a healer, and then that healer recognize immediately that you are the successor of that particular person. These are the three main foundations. So from there, immediately, your ancestors, what do they do through the dreams? They use the very same format as the one which is followed by Christianity. The good principle of it's the one which is maybe to understand it in a context of how do you become a healer. Immediately when your ancestors, they come to you, they tell you that we have chosen you, we want you to carry the work that to heal other people. Immediately they will appoint what is called ukobela. Ukobela is in English is a teacher. So immediately you go under that particular person. So sometimes as you are gifted, other healers, it's either they are prophet in English, or they are pharmacist, or they are the doctors, or they specifically follow what is called Christianish / angelic way of doing things. Those are the 4 ways. So now when you go through the initiation, it's where you learn a lot of you understanding your history. Basically, it's a process that the minimum of the process it can take, it's a process of 6 months and above. It depends with how much your ancestors, they want to stay in an initiation, which is normally called ephehlweni ukuthwasa entwasweni. So now your ancestors, what they do, you will be using the calabash, a mix of, in the calabash, they will mix water as well as the herbs. And then while you are using these herbs and the water, you stir them up until they produce the foam. That foam makes you to understand what is the language your ancestors that they are speaking, which is a heavenly language. And then you start to go what is called on a trance. You go beyond the earthly understanding or the physical of this world. You go through the spiritual world. It's where you can be able to converse with the ancestors of the other person, or you can converse with your own ancestors. And then that's the whole process up until it comes to a stage that you are fully matured and grown. You have learned as much as you can, because also in traditional healing, it's more or less like the normal academic way of doing things. You have your certificates, you have your higher certificates, your diploma, your degree, your master's degree, your PhD. That's how it goes. So it depends with where your ancestors and which power do they carry. Some others, they remain as a prophets because that's what the ancestors' power they are carrying. Others, more or less like me, you end up going on all the other fields. You become inyanga, which is the pharmacist. You become the stunya bearer, which has to do with the to become a prophet. You are doing prophecies, and then you become isangoma. And then isangoma is the one which is like a medical doctor, which diagnoses you. He's foresee the things that to come, the things that are happening, the things that has happened. And then you get the highest of all the degrees, which is called Isanusi. Isanusi is the one which dominates the whole industry of all these other people. He's always called the chief because the word Makoshi is the one which upgrades. That means where you are sitting, that means where you are standing, you are like a king. And then it goes with the things that you are wearing, the traditional clothes and all that. And then the power that you carry, because you can maneuver around. And then the power that you carry is the one which can make you dominate on all 5 elements, which is the water, fire, in earth, and all those. And then you also be able to understand the language which is spoken in heaven, all the birds, all the animals when they are speaking, and then you are able to understand that language. So it depends on an initiation, what type of the power your ancestors are carrying. It's where then now you learn from them through the initiation to speak their language and understand their language.
That's brilliant. You know, I never knew that you had all these ranks. So I had absolutely no idea about the levels of education, etc. Now, do you have to give up a normal life to lead the life of a traditional healer?
In spirituality, when you become a traditional healer, there are no coincidence. Everything is aligned. You find a person who goes to become a medical doctor. You don't have to give up your normal life. Like, for an example, if you hear me, my profession, they took me to a Catholic school. I started to become a priest when I was about to be part of them full time, and then I left. And then that's how they wanted to approach their way of healing, to be based in what is called in a religion of Christianity. You never give up your own life, but there are certain things that you need to give up. The basic, because you become a leader, that means you behave like one. You become a leader, then that means the way you speak, the way you walk, what do you do, where do you hang out, the type of friends.
Lead
Because
by
you are
action, by example.
Yes, you lead by an example. So that's the only thing. You don't give up your life entirely. You will continue dress the way you were dressing, do the things you were doing. You are not giving up, because some others who are healers, they still do their 9 to 5 jobs, but maybe on the weekends, it's when they come and do full-time the traditional healing work.
I find it very interesting. And I think what has really blown me away talking to you in the few times that we have met is your continued respect for the Western Christianity and your continued respect for traditional healing. Now, that's one of the reasons why I found it so important to have you on this platform, because we can work together when helping people, you know, especially in my position as a mental health therapist and as a counselor. We should respect all beliefs and not condemn any, and you know, not feel that one is going to be the only way that we can approach treatment. Because I find that you know, and I've discussed this with a few of my colleagues, that there's a lack of knowledge that leads to a lack of respect for a person's faith and belief.
Yes. One of the reasons, I will give you a typical example. Do you know that our calling as traditional healers, our calling is founded mostly in the Bible, and then it's properly explained. I'll give you a typical example. When you go and read the book of Ezekiel 37, it's where you get a summary of what I've just explained, to say we are called through the dreams, and then we have to meet the ancestors that we never knew. When God came to Ezekiel, he came in a form of a dream, and then he asked him to go and resurrect the dry bones. And then those dry bones, he should give life to them. right? When you are called to be a traditional healer in an African context, that's what basically we are called to do. We are called to go and resurrect the dry bones of your ancestors so that they can be able to come and give you the power. And then you go and read Acts 22 when God called whom is called Paul now, but at that time he was called Saul. So now this is the summary of another aspect of the traditional healers, which is called Isithunya. Because this is how it goes. Paul, when he was Saul, he was traveling with his army. And then a lightning strike. And then immediately when the lightning struck, he heard the voice. Which voice did he hear? He heard the voice of Jesus Christ and saying, Saul, 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 why are you persecuting me? Because that is the very same principle that is used through the dreams for us. The dreams, they come to us and say, why are you not looking after us, your ancestors, when they present the issue of the dreams? And then immediately he says, show me the way. And then God, he sends Saul to Damascus. He turns him blind. It's a very same principle that we go through, because immediately once you understand the calling, that means you have to unlearn so much you have thought you have known, and then it's a place of a darkness. And then immediately comes now a guy called a teacher, which is Ananias. And then it's a very same principle that is being used in our traditional healing. Because immediately once you accept the calling, that means now a teacher, which I mentioned before, that there is going to be a Kobela. And then that's a teacher. In an African context, that means you are taking whom is called Ananias. And then immediately Ananias, he tells Paul to go and be baptized, because God baptized in the spirit, and then he needs to be baptized into the water so that he can hear the ancestors speaking through the ear, because we are not only working with the vibration, and then you need to open the 7 chakras. And then I will come to that just now of the issue of the 7 chakras, because we connect also with the Eastern cultural understanding of things. Because in an African context, we never had the chakras, but the ones which they came with chakras, it's an Indian language, which is coming from India. They were summarizing already what we already knew, but we never had direct terminologies of it.
I'm so sorry that our time is limited, but I'm actually going to just make a point clear. Whoever's watching this are going to be watching this. We are not in any way condemning any religion. The essence of this is to help people to understand that there's a place for every practice when treating mental health, and that our focus should be on the client, the patient, and that person's well-being. And we as therapists, when we're dealing with clients, patients of different cultures, it would actually benefit us to engage with people like Mr. Khumalo, understand why people say they feel certain things. And instead of just saying it's nonsense or I don't believe it, adopt a philosophy of respecting everybody else's beliefs. Because one of the problems in mental health is that we are not culturally sensitive when we counsel people. And if you look around, that seems to be a major issue, not only in South Africa, but throughout the world. Now, I don't want Mr. Khumalo to give us too much of information. I want his information, because I would rather, I am fledgling in South African culture. I don't know a piece of what he knows. So if you were to contact me, you're not going to get any information from me. I'm going to say, go and see him. Talk to him. He's the expert. Mr. Khumalo, very quickly, how does one get hold of you if one wants to learn more about the indigenous culture and how it affects health and everything else? Very quickly, how does one get hold of you?
You can WhatsApp me on +27 72 905 7895. You can contact me directly by a call, or you can send me a WhatsApp. And then my email address is mvelohospitality@gmail.com. And you can go to Twitter. On Twitter, I'm called Siphesihle Khumalo. If you just type Siphesihle Khumalo, it will give you Sipe_K. Automatically, I'm well known on the streets of Twitter. You can find me on Instagram as well.
You're quite a 21st century healer, aren't you? With all your social media links. This is very interesting. Sorry, I interrupted, but it's just this whole social media, 21st century, fourth industrial revolution. And I'm speaking to a traditional healer.
Yes, it's where we give also the free lessons. We teach people how to understand their true calling, and we hold what is called a space, more or less like a webinar, free webinars. We hold them on Twitter. We try to educate as much as we can. Yes, for now, that's where you can be able to get me on these platforms I've mentioned.
Sir, thank you so much. And to my colleagues, if and when you get a chance to watch this, you know how often we're going on and on about the lack of cultural sensitivity. And I hope that this little discussion has given you some insight into the depth of our indigenous culture. And I'm sure that Mr. Khumalo will be willing to engage with us professionals, or anyone for that matter, who wants to challenge his thoughts if you want, because he's the person to challenge, not me. And, you know, get to know more. And one of the reasons why I brought him on is I've yet to come across someone who has a qualification in theology, who has such a deep knowledge of Christianity and a respect for Christianity in such depth, and practicing as a traditional healer on the level of a Makosi. Siphesihle Khumalo, thank you so much, sir. And your time is valued and respected.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for inviting me. It's been such a great pleasure. I really appreciate you.
Take care and be safe, sir. Thank you so much.
Same to you, ma'am.